Blessings upon blessings. It is good to be right back here at the noonday hour with each of you all. And of course, I bring you greetings on behalf of the president of the National Alumni Association, that being Mr. Jerry Redmond, as well as the president of the university, Dr. Gerald Briggs. Of course, my name is Reverend Anthony J. Brownlow, and I am the chaplain for the National Alumni Association. Well, folks, I am sure you see scrolling there at the bottom of the screen our topic for the week or theme for the week: facilitated performance. Exodus, the 4th chapter, the 10th verse, and 10th through 12th verses, excuse me. So, folks, let's dive right into it, and we will read the text at this particular point. And the text reads as follows. Then Moses said to the Lord, "O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." So the Lord said to him, "Who has made man's mouth? Or who makes the mute, the deaf, the seeing, or the blind? Have not I, the Lord? Now, therefore, go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you what you shall say." Folks, again, this topic or today's topic or theme is facilitated performance. Folks, this is a very interesting text, and it's always interesting to me to hear individuals in the biblical text have these exchanges with God. And, at the outset, Moses does this thing where he focuses on his deficiency, and that being, of course, the stuttering component, where he references not being eloquent, right? But I also noticed, and it hit me in the midst of that moment, he never mentions this idea of returning to the place where he killed someone. He left that out, but he focused on, this stuttering or the lack of being eloquent, right? But I paused because initially, I wanted to go in and be judgmental on Moses. But then it hit me. This is the 4th chapter, and their relationship, and they're, referencing God and Moses, it occurs in the 3rd chapter. So I want to throw Moses some grace in this moment because, hey, listen, God shows up in like this miraculous fashion with the burning bush, all that whole scenario. And that happens in the 3rd chapter. And here in the 4th chapter, you got this huge ask of me. And, when I sit down and think about that, that's a lot. And I think all of us would agree. We hadn't even had any time to really kind of build any significant rapport. And now you are, not only are you asking me, for a job enlargement component, because even if it was a job enlargement component, I think Moses would have been a little bit more receptive, of course, growing, my responsibilities on the level that I'm accustomed to. But no, you give me a job enrichment, right? So not only, you assign me this task that is greater than the responsibilities that I'm accustomed to. And I sat and I thought about that thing. I said, wow, that's a lot. And if you think about that, that would be a lot for you and I. And so, folks, when you kind of consider, and I don't know, some folk might not be familiar with facilitated performance. It's actually a process in reference to a process that's that is associated with guiding and supporting individuals as it relates to achieving their performance goals, right? And so Here in this moment, that's what we have as it relates to God and Moses' interaction. And so the tangible or, a relatable example that came to mind, I was listening to this coach some years ago talk about this collegiate coach who had this one player, talented young man. Um, the young man wanted to play linebacker, uh, but the coach asked him or suggested to him that he play defensive end. He said, we think you would be a greater asset uh, to our team. And not only that, um, your skills and talents fit that position. And I would suggest, this is what the coach was telling the young man, I would suggest that this gives you a greater opportunity to reach the NFL. And lo and behold, the young man begins to play the defensive end position, thrives, does so well, and ends up getting drafted and is in the NFL to this very day, right? And so, for those of you who are not, football fans, and that language doesn't mean anything to it, I would make a similar or parallel to your director or your manager identifying some talents and gifts in you um, that even you hadn't come to terms with, or you hadn't sort of bought into about you, or me, right? And so, where they may come in and say, "Hey, I would like to promote you to this next level," and in your mind, in my mind, we might be saying, "Well, we're skipping some steps." uh, we don't have all of the accolades. And so, because, as it relates to facilitated performance, the other thing that's associated with facilitated performance is this idea of I want to reposition you or position you in a space or in a scenario where we can benefit overall as an organization or you as an individual. I want to reposition you so that you are extremely successful. Now, there's an accountability component associated with that as well. Now, but I think that's what God is doing here in this moment. I think God sees something in Moses that Moses doesn't even see in Moses himself. And I would suggest in this season that we walk in the land of the living, that God sees some stuff in you and I that we don't quite see. And so God takes the position of the facilitated performance, and God, puts us in a job enrichment scenario. God stretches us, right? And invites us to, to see ourselves differently than we've historically seen ourselves. Because we might do just what Moses did. Instead of us seeing it as an opportunity of growth, we might have this scenario where we have our default is to identify what we don't have. And I say, that's the, thing that's interesting about the exchange too. That, hey, God comes to Moses. No, the relationship hadn't been, outstanding, years, and maybe that's why God afforded Moses some grace when he's talking back and forth. And Moses is like, no, I'm not, this is what's wrong with me. This is what's wrong with me. And, I'm slow of tongue. I'm not eloquent. He's outlining what's wrong with him and not seeing this as an opportunity to contribute in the life of his community. And not only that, for him, God is so amazing. And and I've said this once before on this platform. Hey, when God blesses you, I mean, it's an abundance. It's twofold. Sometimes it's quadruple, right? Because God extends this invitation for Moses to actually go down in the history of man, right? Because to this very day, 2,000 years later, this character, Moses, is significant to you and I. And I want to plant in your spirit and put right in the forefront of your thoughts that when God extends an invitation for you to, take this job enrichment moment, to actually extend and stretch yourself, that not only is God desiring to bless you, but God desires to bless so many in relationship with you. So that's what I want to pause at this hour, put in your hearts, put in your mind, facilitated performance. God desires to assist you and I in guiding and achieving the goals associated with our particular walks. And that's a blessing. And God can see so much further down the road that God knows the impact if we decide to be obedient and accept the invitation that God extends to us. God knows that the walk and the commute will be amazing. And I would suggest too, God is also kind of like sharing with Moses and informing us in this moment. I'm not going to leave you alone when you go into all these different situations. So, that being said, we'll prepare our hearts and mind for a word of prayer, and let us still our hearts to the merciful one that sees so much further down the road and that understands the gifts and talents that are housed in our DNA. God, we are thankful when you enter or come to the threshold of our existence and afford us an invitation to be game changers, to move in the life not only of our individual selves, our individual families, but in the life of a community. God, we bless you for how you move. And God, we recognize and acknowledge that sometimes it is so amazing that we can't even wrap our hands and arms around it, Lord. Here in this same moment, God, I have no idea of the season or the hour individuals who are on this Zoom with us. I have no idea of what they wrestle with. Oh God, but you being God, being omnipresent, being all knowing, and being all powerful, are well aware. And so, God, I would suggest somebody has chimed in on this day, soliciting some divine assistance, because they need a hope moment. They need a love offering that escapes heaven, that is nourishing and nurturing, Lord. And so, because of that, God, we have paused to invite, to protest about someone's circumstance in this very day. We've also paused in this very hour to solicit your assistance, because we recognize, Lord, that inviting you into the fray of our very existence is the ultimate answer. God, we also pause and pray at this moment, Lord, grateful that homecoming went off well. But in the same vein, God, we ask that you continue to be with the administrators of our university, as well as those in leadership in and around the National Alumni Association. God, but we also have, of course, we learned of a tragedy there Friday of leading into homecoming Saturday. A contemporary of mine, when I walked the grounds of that hallowed institution, who transitioned to be with the ancestors, Lord. And so, God, we ask, of course, that you be with Dr. Andre Matthews' family, of course, his wife and his 3 children. God, I can only imagine learning of that news, the trauma and the heaviness of the bereavement moment as they wrestle with that. But not only with his wife and his children, his brother, his family in general, and a number of us who were all connected with him in some form or fashion. I'd also like to lift up his staff, of course, there at his office in Jackson. God, we know some things, life is filled with swift transitions. And so, God, help them, help all of us, Lord, who were blessed to know Dr. Matthews, Andre, and keep and continue to guide and nurture and nourish his wife, of course, his daughters, his family, and just all of us, Lord, who have been taken aback by this moment of bereavement. And God, as we prepare to bring this prayer to a close, we know that every prayer concern has not been lifted. Again, God, we beg and we plead in this moment that you park your presence for those who we don't know are wrestling with whatever they are wrestling with. Lord, continue to be a support or a supporter of those who need support. Continue to provide hope and love for those who feel without love and who are wrestling with this symptom of hopelessness. God, we are grateful, though, that you've done what you've done for us by being a blessing and affording us this day an opportunity to see the 23rd of October in the year 2024. God, we bless you and we thank you. Amen. Folks, once again, it has been a blessing to be right here with you all. We are grateful that you paused and created some time and space to visit here at the noonday hour. And so that being said, we ask that you continue to ask and seek as well as knock regarding your concerns because the God we serve is not in the business of having a deaf ear to the issues associated with your walk. That being said, we'll bring it to a close. We look forward to seeing you right back here, same time, same place next week. Be blessed.